All right, my friends, macro data with Excel. We're looking at the labor market. We want to make a plot like this. I'm going to zoom in. All right, so vertical axis is the month over month change, delta, for the percentage point contributions of what goods, services, and the government. The black line shows you the total. So, for example, what you have in November 2023 was the growth of around 0.09% in the payrolls. Now, um, how much of that 0.09 percentage points was from goods, from services, and from the government? And you can see the way that it stacks. It's viewed through time and take a look at, for example, December 2024. Most of it was from services, a little bit from government, nothing from goods. And then it's evolved through time. And most recently, uh, as of 6/2025, it's down. Actually, let's do this. Let's update this data. Right now, it's the 17/2025. So data, Fred, grab that data. I'll show you how to do that. And this should update everything for us. Let's take away that last date so that we can get the most recent point through 9/16. Let's go back and look at that. The graph magically updates. That's the power of setting this up through FRED, through an API with the data setup. The graph ended before at 6/1/2025, but it's more recent now. We have data for July as well as August. I want to show you how to do that updating as well as how to do that stacking. So scooch over. And one date, always in A1 and FRED. That means get the columns of data. We have goods. We have two others, services as well as government. I don't expect you to memorize those tickers. You can go to FRED and you can get those linear transformations. We just want the raw counts. It's monthly data. I want all the way back to as far as you can, and then you can leave, like you just saw, that next date blank in A4 to get the most recent information. Then you go to FRED, you go to get data, and it updates it for you. 1, 2, 3, 4 columns. Now, I created the table. How do you know it's a table? Coloring, but table design. It's called jobs industry. All right, so in this column here, what I want to do is add up all of those. If is number, date, etc. So what's this doing? Whenever you have these complicated formulas, look to the core of it. The if is going to be over here. I want you to sum everything, B through D. So this is indicating, see what's highlighted, row 7. So I want you to sum up everything in this table in the value column, colon, value 3. The colon means everything through that. The at means it's referencing that row in the table. It's not saying goods and services and government because it's referring to the FRED column headings, value 2 and 3. You can't really change those easily if you want this updated automatically. It's a pain in the ass, but that's the way that it works. Now, where's this is num if coming in? There might be situations where perhaps there's a date missing, or perhaps you have an extended table and you don't want all these extraneous values showing up as NAs. Sometimes you might want them. In this case, we don't. I wanted to show you that. So is number at date. So is that row, which is highlighted in this case, 7, on that column, that date column, something that's numeric. If it's true, then what do I want you to do? I didn't mean to rhyme. I want you to sum all those things up. If it's not true, then I want you to go air quotes. Don't print anything. Make it nice and neat. Nothing's there. So for example, if you get rid of that, nothing there, right? If something was missing, could be missing in the middle, could be missing at the beginning, could be missing at the end. Uh, the if statement goes on the left to encompass all of it. So you do that and you drag that down. We want to now get to the contributions. The contributions are a mixture of shares and growth. Shares and growth. So we'll do these in very small steps. What are the shares? I want you to take a look at the number of jobs. In this case, it's thousands of jobs. You could look in B3, C3, D3 to see the way they're labeled. And I want you to take that number, that value divided by the total. You notice over here, it's at value divided by at total. Where are those things coming from? Well, row 7 is highlighted. The at is indicating the column. And if you take a look, this one's called value. This one we labeled, we typed that in, total. Again, if what is number on what date. So if there's a trouble with date, then what I want you to do is skip over the calculation and give me air quotes. Otherwise, I want you to give me the share. 0.37 means 11098 divided by 29923. Or in other words, goods were about 37% of total employment in January 1939. Services were 50 and government about 13. Okay, so take those, copy them all the way down. That is not the contribution. That's one piece to get to the contribution. Contributions for this additive series is always going to be shares times delta. All right, so let's get to the delta. Now, we're going to do this in a couple of steps. We're going to grab just the raw delta. That's the change, not the percent delta yet, just the change. So what we want, go all the way over to the side. We're clicking on row 8. Add value, so take the value column. Minus B7. Remember, when you're referencing the tables, it doesn't use it on the second one, but it uses it in the same way. So go back B8 minus B7, at value column minus B7. So that'll be the raw change, the raw delta. What if you have something missing? What if the date is missing or the date in the prior period was missing? If either of those cases are true, then what you want to do is give me the air quotes. So if it's a number, if that date's a number, then you're good to go. If the prior date's a number, you're good to go. But if they're not, if is number false, right? If they're not, then you're going to stop and give me those air quotes. This is to clean it up. Let's see that in action. Let's say one of these things is missing. It's going to delete all that stuff, okay? Again, there's multiple ways that you could deal with this. What do these numbers mean? There was an increase of 123,000 jobs between January and February 1939. Now, that only says 1, 2, 3. How do you know thousands? Look at the units. The units are thousands, easily adjusted. So that's 123,000 for goods, 41 for services, 13 for government. Add that all up, and you get 177. Now, you could do that in two ways. You could literally just sum across those. Like down here, the sum is 177. Or you could do the same type of formula on the total function, the total column, pardon me. Okay, so we have the delta, but we don't have the percent delta. So we're going to walk towards that. First thing I want to see is what is the share of that delta for each of those pieces. So we know that goods grew by 123,000 jobs, and we know the total grew by 177,000 jobs. So 123 divided by 177 is 69% of the total growth came from goods. All right, of that total, 69% was that share. That's not a contribution, that's just the share of the growth. I also have inside of that function all that fancy stuff regarding what if something is missing, and that came in handy over here, right? If we have the total delta being missing, then what you're going to do is skip over the calculation and give me the air quotes, right? So if is number true, then do this. If not, then do that. If you have a number for the total delta, which is in column L, then compute this fraction. If not, then give me the air quotes. So what are we doing? At, that's the row in which I'm clicking. In this case, it happens to be 7. What column? Goods delta divided by at row 7. What column? Total delta, that's the share. And as we said, 69% of that 177,000 jobs came from goods in that period, 23 from services, and 7% of that growth, that delta, came from government. Okay, so now get to the contribution. Remember, we said it was the share times percent delta, share times percent delta. How do we get to the percent delta? You can do that in a few different ways. Let's scooch over so you see the formula. Always when you got these long formulas, break it up. Go to the kernel. The kernel on the if statements is usually at the back end. So at goods delta divided by B7. At goods delta, goods delta, goods delta. There we go. So the goods delta is column I. What we want to do is take the change in the number of jobs for that category. So that's, imagine a fraction, right? That's the percent growth divided by the prior row. That was the B7. You see that highlighted there. The prior row gives you the amount of goods, jobs for the goods sector for that period. So it sounds complicated, but if you think about it, it's new minus old divided by old. New minus old is delta shares. So that's the change. That's the delta in the numerator of your fraction for a percent change divided by old, which is 11098. So let's scooch back over again. And that's what we're going to do here. Once more, we might have some situations where stuff is missing. So we use the if, the or, is number. If that row, in this case, row 8, date is missing, then I want you to give me air quotes. If that row prior, 7, date is missing, I want you to give me the air quotes. Now, why would I do it for both? Well, because I have a percent delta. I need both the current and the prior to get to those changes. So if either of those are wrong, then give me the air quotes to make it nice and neat. If not, then give me the change. So what this means is the amount of employment in the goods sector grew by 1.1% in that month, services 0.28%, government 0.33%, and the total was 0.59. And that total was on that total column. Okay, contributions. We're getting closer to what we need. Contributions are the share times the percent delta. Now, watch when you look at the formula. Let me scooch over. I clicked on row 8, and it is the goods percent delta times F7. So I'm referencing something in row 8, multiplying it by something in row 7. The proper way to do the attribution, which we've spoken about in other settings, is to look at the change in that period times the share from the prior period. So we want, again, go to the end to look at the way these things are done. Percent goods delta, goods percent delta, pardon me. That's column P. Take the percentage change in that period times F7. What's F7? The share in the prior period. Share in the prior period times the percentage change in this period. That'll give you the contribution. The if is number is just making it fancy to worry about, control for, and help to deal with issues where you're going to have NA because you got something that's missing. So in this case, if you have the percent total delta true, where it is a number, right? So if you have that information, if you have that number, then go ahead and compute that contribution. If not, then give me air quotes. That's what that's saying. 0.41 percentage points, 0.14 percentage points, 0.04 percentage points. And if you add all of those up, let me see if I can get that in one line for you. If you add all those up, you get to the total contribution. So what this line here is doing is it's doing a sum. We saw a sum before. Sum of the job industries table at the goods contribution, dot, dot, all the way through the government contribution on that row. The ampersand at symbol represents in that row. So add up all the columns in that row. But only do that if you're good to go. If the percent total delta is true. If not, then give me the air quotes. Again, for example, here, you don't have all the conditions met. You don't have the percent delta, so you can't do it. So you're going to give me the air quotes. In some situations, you actually want an NA if you're doing plotting, etc. In some situations, but I want to keep it nice and pretty. So that's how you get to those contributions. Now, how do I know the 0.59 is appropriate? We could do some checks in here. Let's zoom in right there. Okay. So we just said adding up all the contributions I calculated is 0.59. So is that right? Did it grow a total of 0.59%? I'm referencing the total delta and I'm dividing it by the old. Remember, new minus old divided by old. So I'm using the raw data and I'm calculating the percentage change. And I got 0.59%. And then I took my three contributions and add them up, and it equals that 0.59%. So my attribution analysis matches. So I want to plot that out. And you could do all sorts of fancy stuff. What I wanted to do here was actually grab the last 20 dates. So what I did was I set up a counter, 19, 18, all the way down to 0. And then what I wanted to do was find the row numbers in that table relating to the most recent 20 observations. This is referencing AC20. What is that? What does that one mean? I want to match on AC19 for the goods contribution. You could do it for any of them. I want to find the last date that I've called in that table for the goods contribution. Let me find that last date. What's the row number for that? And that row number for that is going to be 1040. That's the last time I have a value for this. Okay, so then what I want to do is go 19 rows before that last row in the table, 18 rows before that last row in the table. And again, those rows are not the rows in the Excel spreadsheet, it's the rows inside of your table. So I want to pull everything from row 1021 all the way to 1040, all the way to the last one. And what I'm going to do then is I want to find in the goods contribution column the 1021 row. How do I do that? Index. Remember, index is saying, tell me what array I'm looking up and what row number I'm looking up for that. Do that for services. Do that for government and do that for the total. You can even find the date associated with that. Okay, so what this is saying is look in that job industry table, find for me the date column associated with row 1021. And once you have all that information, you could create some type of nice plot, stacked bar plot, and you get to see where our contributions are during the most recent period. Hope that helps.